What's going on? This Buddy Red, and you tuned in to Rolling Out.
Hey, Rolling Out family, welcome to Rolling Out Music. I'm your host, Eddie Precise Lamar, and today we have a very special guest with us, Buddy Red. He's a fresh, powerful voice in blues and rock, a genre-bending artist who brings raw emotion, technical skill, and storytelling to the stage. We're diving into his journey, influences, and the soul of his music. Let's get into it. Buddy Red, how you doing, brother?
Man, I can't complain. Thank you for having me.
Yes. I'm excited to have this conversation. As I mentioned before, I've been listening to your music for the past few days, and it definitely was not what I expected. And man, I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, that's one of the main things I like to do is, surprise people because I'm sure it's a lot of question marks that, come up around me whenever people wonder what it is that I'm doing. People don't know if it's country, if it's blues, if it's rock and roll, they don't know what it is. And so I like to pleasantly surprise people.
What first inspired you to pick up the guitar and start making music?
So I started making beats like when I was 16, but at that point, I mostly only knew R&B, Lil Pop, and 90s hip hop was my favorite. And so I was going more along that sound. But after a while, I got kind of restless until around 2018, when I was 18 years old. I went to the movies and I saw Bohemian Rhapsody, which is that movie about Queen and Freddie Mercury, that biopic. I saw that and it turned me on to rock and roll for the first time in my life. And I realized, okay, my next step is playing an instrument. What instrument? Can I see myself playing the drums? Yeah, I can see that. Can I see myself playing the bass guitar? It's a little boring. It's not enough attitude and movement for me. What about keyboard? No, guitar. I couldn't see myself playing the guitar. And so that's what kind of gave me the idea of doing it because I couldn't see myself doing it.
Yo, that's tripped out. So you couldn't see yourself doing it, and you decide, okay, well, let me try something I don't even see myself doing.
Exactly.
That's amazing, bro. Who were some of your earliest musical influences? You mentioned 90s hip hop. You mentioned Bohemian Rhapsody. Who's influenced you so far?
Man, so when I started picking up the guitar, that's when I started my record collection, number one. Like when I started collecting vinyl records, it was just as simple as me looking up best 70s, 60s, musicians, rock and roll players. And from there, it's kind of how I started my roadmap of, I guess all the influences that I have today, from Led Zeppelin to Queen to Pink Floyd to The Strokes to David Bowie, Jimi Hendrix, of course. And then once I got to turn on the rock and roll, I went back to the origins of rock and roll, which is blues. And that's when I got into Muddy Waters, Howlin' Wolf, Little Walter, stuff like that. Chuck Berry, of course, Little Richard, that kind of stuff.
What is it about the blues and rock that drew you in and made you say, okay, I want to work around this sound?
I think what attracted me to rock and roll, because I got attracted to rock and roll first. I don't know if it was the theatrics of it all or the fact that it was so loud that you had to pay attention. Because before rock and roll, I was always kind of behind the scenes or, a little ducked off from the crowd. But the fact that rock and roll was the complete opposite of that, I feel like that's what caught my attention. I think I wanted to challenge myself to be what in the back of my mind I knew I already was, which was a very interesting character that should be displayed. And rock and roll felt like the driving factor behind that way of thinking. That's what attracted me to rock and roll. But once I saw what rock and roll was, I went to where it came from because that's what I like to do. I like to, in addition to a musician, I like to consider myself a historian as well.
Mhm.
Like I like to look back at why things are the way that they are. So I wanted to go back to the blues, which was the beginning of rock and roll. And then once I discovered that, it's like, oh man, I don't know if I like this more or what. And what attracted me to the blues was the simplistic nature of it, the fact that you just had to be raw and you had to be somewhat emotional. Well, not somewhat, you had to be very emotional if, you want the blues to carry through. And I've always kept a lot of things within myself. It felt like the blues was a great outlet, a simple outlet for me to express what I'd never really expressed before. And so when I combine the blues, expressing something that I've never expressed before, with rock and roll, it factor that I have to pay attention to this person because they're so loud and intense. When I combine those two, it just seemed just obvious, like an obvious road for me to go down based on how I feel and how I felt.
I definitely get the picture you're painting. So is that what inspired the name Buddy Red? Those two different genres in that way?
Exactly. When I came up with all this music and I realized the road that I want to go down, I said, all right, what are people gonna call me? Like how do I want to be referred to as? I was thinking about all of my favorite artists at the time, like Muddy Waters, like I said, Jimi Hendrix, Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin. Think, okay, what do they have in common? They all have two names, Led Zeppelin, Buddy, I mean not Buddy Guy, Jimi Hendrix, Pink Floyd. So I'm like, okay. I need two names. I need two names that come together. And I started thinking about Pink Floyd and how they got their name because how they got their name was they took two different blues artists, which was Pink Anderson, something Floyd. I forget what the second blues guy's name was, but they
Mm-hmm.
took the first name from one, the last name from the other, and combined it into Pink Floyd. I said, okay, what if I followed that formula? So I'm thinking about it, thinking, okay, who do I know that has a cool name? I was thinking about my grandfather on my father's side, Buddy, my grandpa Buddy. Apparently, I was the only grandchild that he was able to meet before he passed. So that struck a chord with me and said, all right, my grandpa Buddy. And then I'm thinking about my mother's side of the family, my Uncle Red. Whenever I would dress the way that I dressed or listen to the music that I listened to, my mama would always say, you remind me of my older brother. He used to listen to that. He used to wear these kind of clothes. So, okay, my Uncle Red. And I came up with Buddy Red to kind of bridge the two families together, you know?
That's so amazing. And it brings me to my next question. How has your background and your personal journey shaped the way that you approach this music?
I will say, growing up the way that I've grown up, around the people I've grown up with, experiencing the things that I've experienced, overall, just being the way that I am, it shaped my music a lot because for a long time I felt like I couldn't really relate to many people. And I've always felt like somewhat of an outcast or a black sheep or what I used to call the ugly duckling. You remember that story, the ugly duckling? All these ducklings hatch from a batch, and there's one that's just the complete opposite. You know, it's a little bigger than the other ones. It's black and it's it can't really swim that good and all that kind of stuff. It's completely different until it realizes that it wasn't a duckling after all. Like it was supposed to be something else, supposed to be a swan. I would always have those internal feelings about myself and my environment, like I didn't fit in. And I didn't know what to do with that until I started, creating my music with my guitar. From all the girls that made me feel like an ugly duckling, from the friends and family that made me feel like one, to the people around me or the people outside of me that from the outside looking in have all these expectations and opinions. It all shaped the things that I wanted to say behind my guitar that I couldn't say because I didn't have an outlet before, but now I do, if that makes sense.
It does. It makes sense. So now you've grown into this swan, this great artist, right? Can you describe the feeling you get when you're performing live?
Man, it's been a trip, honestly. So performing live in front of an audience, I remember when it felt like a dream. Like it felt like, oh man, that would be amazing to do. Once I get good with this guitar, it'll be amazing to perform in front of an audience. I remember it feeling like that to feeling like, oh man, one day I'm gonna have to perform in front of an audience. This is kind of scary, man. Like I'm not good enough yet. And I remember it feeling like from there to, okay, I'm about to perform in front of an audience. Let's do it. I got it. This is it. This is the moment that I've been waiting for. I can do all these tricks at home by myself. I can sound like this by myself. Let me sound like this in front of an audience. Oh man, I didn't sound like that. I need to work harder. I need to do better. I need to get more comfortable playing in front of an audience. So now I feel like I can't wait to perform in front of an audience because I know that I'm gonna have a good time, man. I'm gonna have fun. I couldn't mess up even if I tried to. The energy and this excitement that I feel, I know it's gonna translate to the audience because it always does these days. And
Yes.
right now it's just fun. I'm always looking forward to it, man, because every audience I perform in front of, there's a new person. There's somebody that's never heard of me before or who thought that they heard of me before. But when they witness or when they see it for themselves, they want to know more. They want to ask questions. They want to know when's the next time I'm performing. They want to know if I make music, if I have some stuff out. They want to know if I go to this city, if I go to that city. Like I get supporters every time I go on stage. And as a live musician, that's really what we need. People that, want us and recognize what we're doing and they feel something from it and they want to keep feeling it. So I'm always
Yes.
excited.
I'm going to ask you this question because I know I want to give you a moment to acknowledge who your mother and father are for the world to know, right? Because I want to ask you this question about the music industry and the challenges, because they might be a little bit different as opposed to somebody else, but the challenges that you've experienced in this industry as you've been navigating this music world.
My father's Tip Harris. My mother is LaShawn Dixon. A lot of people know my father, but they don't really know my mama. She was a hairdresser, and my father was a superstar. But
Right.
as far as the music industry, some challenges that I've had to face. I haven't been in any crazy rooms or anything to where they want me to write this down, sign this piece of paper. Like I haven't really had that phase yet. I don't think. More of the challenges have been finding my place or finding my tribe, I guess you could say,
Yes.
because I live in Atlanta, and Atlanta is as diverse as it can be. It isn't really suited for. It's not as suited for people doing what I do, live musicians playing the music that I play, and so it's always a challenge for me to find people, find venues, find clubs that know what I'm doing and know how to put me around the city or shop me around the city so that I can, make a living. Found is that when I go to other cities, Austin, Texas, or somewhere like New York or Nashville, when I go to different cities, they're a little bit more familiar with what I do and they can work with me a little bit more. But the industry here in Atlanta, it's more catered to rap and R&B, which I am not. Another thing that I'm learning about the music industry is it's very impersonal, in terms of marketing because you can't just be a musician anymore. You don't have to be a streamer, but it helps to be a streamer. You gotta be an algorithm person. You gotta know how the algorithm works. You gotta be a social media head.
Yeah.
Um, you gotta collaborate with other social media people, and it's very impersonal from the artistic standpoint, I feel like, and that's been a challenge for me. Those are all the challenges I've noticed so far, I'm sure. I mean, of course, like it's always a little irritating when you first work with a new team, you got all these different personalities trying to work with you. Oh, another challenge I'll say, when people don't understand what it is that you do, but they see your potential, you got people all around you that try to pull you in that direction, pull you in this direction, say, "Oh, you could do this. Or, oh, you know what you should do? You should do that. Hey, look what they're doing over there with the country music. You could make a song like that, and
Yeah.
then do that." Like you got people that kind of just give you all of these ideas without really asking you what it is that you want to do or who you are. So it's very important to recognize who you are and what you want to accomplish in this industry because it's a lot to accomplish and people will recognize that and try to get you to wear all different types of hats that you wouldn't be caught dead in.
What I admire about you is this focus that is clearly demonstrated in the music. When I was reading your bio, I read the story about you hopping in your car going to South by Southwest to Austin. And Austin really is an acceptance city when it comes to the music because they listen to everything. How was that drive? How was that drive for you from Atlanta to Austin? Like, what was on your mind when you were making that trip?
Now that I think about it right now, it kind of represented the journey that I think anybody would take when they realize what it is that they want to do. At first, this is for the trip and the journey analogy that I'm talking about. At first, it's fun. It's like, oh, I'm about to do it. I'm about to do it. I'm doing it. I'm in the car. I'm driving. Ooh, 1 hour, yeah. But eventually, you start getting tired. You say, oh man, I'm really doing this, man. I'm not even halfway there yet. Okay. Let me keep listening to music. Let me keep fueling the fire. But then you get to where you're halfway there and it's like, oh, man, I got what? I've been driving for 6 hours and got 7 hours to go. Oh shit. Okay, let's keep it going. And for that trip, I made one stop and it was to eat some Raising Cane's. I might have
Mhm.
been a little past Louisiana at that point. I don't remember. But I stopped and I ate and I got right back on the road because I wanted to make it one trip. And that's another thing. I don't think I would do that again. I think I'll probably take a little more of a rest next time. But, it kind of represents, like I said, the journey analysis. When you want to get something done, you want to get it done as fast as possible, even when that may not be the best way of doing it. But that's the way I did it. And I remember when I got to Texas, I was thinking, finally, I'm almost there. But I'm checking my GPS, it still say I'm 4 hours away. I'm like, damn, Texas? Come on, man. It should be like an hour and a half, 2 hours.
You recognize how big Texas is once you get there.
Yes. The whole journey, the whole trip, I don't want to say humbling, but it was, man. And I realized how difficult it is to do things when you're on your own. Because I was alone driving a little
Mhm.
Honda Accord. When I got there, I felt great to know that I did it. I did it by myself, and I had a team waiting on me out there. I also learned at the end of that trip that I'm not gonna do that again. I'm gonna do something a little different. Something's gonna have to change next time.
Hey,
But it's good.
lesson learned. Lesson learned.
It's good to know that I could do it if I really had to.
How do you balance staying true to the blues and the rock tradition while still developing your own unique style?
I would say maintaining that balance involves you always chasing something, outside of the balance lies within always chasing that something that you've been chasing when you didn't care about the money or you didn't care about the fame or you didn't care about the women or the validation from people. Ever since I was a kid, I always wanted to do something music related. Like I would always listen to Michael Jackson, like every other kid. I would always listen to Prince and all these other people and think, man, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do something like that. But that's meant for people like Michael Jackson. That's meant for people like Prince. That's meant for people like Whitney Houston. I had like a feeling that I was chasing. And so maintaining that balance is continuing to chase that feeling, even when, as you grow up, even when, as life starts, making itself apparent, you have all these other distractions thrown at you from, family to women to money to, hard times to like working and providing and responsibilities, going through all of that and still chasing what it is that you've been chasing since you were a kid. I guess keeping your innocence about you or keeping a remnant of your innocence about you is is where I believe that balance lies was, keeping it true, keeping it real. Because when you're innocent, you get disappointed a lot. You get disappointed a lot because you realize that being innocent, it can be a detriment out here today. And that's where the blues comes in because, oh man, I did everything right. And my woman done left me, or did everything right, and I don't got no money, or, you know. So that's how you remain true to all that stuff by just remaining innocent, even when it hurts you.
How do you stay so grounded?
Reading books helps. I think reading books helps. I would suggest that, whenever you feel lost, whenever anybody feels lost or feels like they don't know what to do, who they are, where they're heading, I always read a book whenever those kind of questions come about. And not just any book, like something that obviously pertains to whatever it is that I'm doing or whatever it is that I want to do. I read a book and I always end up learning something that prepares me for the next chapter in my life, funny enough. And then when you read books, you think a lot too. I think a lot. I reflect a lot. I think a lot about my life and what led me here, who I ran into along the way, who's still here, who's gone. So to answer your question, remaining grounded, I kind of just remember things. I think about things a lot. Probably, well, sometimes I spend too much time thinking too. So I might be too grounded sometimes. I don't know.
Trust me, I get it. I live in my head sometimes, so I understand. And sometimes I think that's kind of like, for lack of a better word, that's the burden of an artist, because you want to make sure that you're bringing your truest self forward, and that may require some thinking sometimes, living in your head sometimes. So I understand. So with that, if you could collaborate with any artist, past or present, who would it be and why?
Prince, for one, I would love to collaborate with him. Like I remember before I even thought about playing an instrument, I learned that Prince, he played all the instruments and wrote his entire first album and I believe his second album. I think his first couple albums, he did all the instrumentation to it for the most part. And I remember I was probably like 12 years old reading that. I said, no way. Because I'm telling you, I was 12 years old. I love music still. But I was reading that. I said, no way. That's not true. Let me go back and listen to his first album. Because even if he did play all the instruments and write it and produce it himself, it can't be that good, right? Because, it's his first album and he's doing everything. And he's what, 18, 19? No, let me listen to this. And I listened to it and it was phenomenal. I said, whoa. So this can be done. Somebody can do everything on their first album and it can sound great. Like once I kind of had that once I had that flip of a switch in my head, I think that's what motivated me to pick up multiple instruments because I did all the instrumentation on my favorite song, 1958. I owe a lot of that to Prince because he kind of showed me that it can be done indirectly. But if he were to directly show me that kind of stuff, there's no telling what kind of things I would have done or I would do. So I would say Prince is on the top of my list of people that I would have loved to work with. Jimi Hendrix, but I don't know how well that would work because he was a very specific artist, and I don't know. I don't know if that would work as well as I hope it would. I'll probably just like a jam with him or something.
Mhm. You mentioned your song, and those are two amazing artists. You mentioned your song 1953, but you also just released a new song, Soul Is Soul. What was the inspiration behind that, and what's the story you're telling?
The story that I was telling when I wrote that song, well, for one, when I wrote the song, I was in a very irritated place in my life because I'm having these conversations with people, my brother in particular, about what I need to do if I want to make it in the music industry or if I want to reach my goals and all that kind of stuff. And all the things that he were telling me made me feel like, okay, unless I change who I am, I'm not gonna reach my goals. Like I believe that I'm enough to get everything that I want, but she's telling me that I'm not, that I have to be more of this, I have to be more of that. So I essentially have to sell who I am, get rid of who I am, and become somebody else. And so that song was kind of voicing my frustration with how things are today, like how so many people they lose their innocence for the drive of money. Like they have to have some more money so that they can do this, so that they can do that, so that they can reach their goals or sustain their responsibilities. Selling his soul for $1. I wanted to create a scenario that I didn't want to end up in. That's as simple as that first verse is. And I also think the second verse, selling his soul for a woman. I remember I was in a very questionable relationship with a woman at the time, or at the very least, I just ended one. It felt like she wanted me to be something that I wasn't. The only way that relationship would have worked was if I sold who I am, sold who I was in exchange for somebody that she wanted me to be. And I think a lot of young men can relate to that. And so I just wanted to voice that too, because I'm sure, like I said, a lot of young men can relate to that. That's the story behind it.
Thank you for that. Let me not make the assumption. Who are your top five guitarists of all time?
Let me see my top five guitarists of all time. I'm going to say David Gilmour from Pink Floyd. He's one. I'm going to say Jimi Hendrix, of course, for number two. For number three, I'm gonna say Robert Johnson for number three, just because of how unique and how specific his style was. Number four, I will say Prince. Number five, let me think, man. It can go so many ways. I'll say Brian May from Queen. He was great.
That's an awesome list. Just wanted to toss one out there that you may not know if you ever get a chance to listen. Joe Satriani, amazing.
Surfing Alien, is that
Yes,
one?
yes,
Yeah.
that album. Listen, wow, yes, that album specifically, his whole personality and everything comes through that guitar. It's amazing.
It's so funny you said that. I was thinking it when I was making that long pause. I was thinking, dang, I didn't say him, but I don't know enough about him yet. I do know he's great, but I don't know enough about him to say yes. So it's funny you mentioned him.
No,
Okay.
no, no, he's amazing. He's amazing. So maybe you go revisit that today again. So you're on tour now, man. How's the tour going?
Man, it's going great. I feel like I'm getting a lot of needed repetition on stage, man. One of my main gripes before I was on tour was, man, I'm not playing on stage enough. Because here in Atlanta, I would, go to as many jam sessions as I can go to, but it would be only like 15 minutes on stage, maybe two or three songs before I have to get off stage and let somebody else go on. And it would never be enough time for me to kind of
Mhm.
discover who I am up there. And so I would have to take what I can get, really. But when you're on tour, you're just about on stage every day, 30 to 45 minutes to an hour. You kind of gel with musicians that you have played with before. You learn how to adapt to position. You learn how to adapt to musicians that you haven't played with before, and you just learn a lot very quickly. It's what I needed, and I can see myself getting used to it. I want to do it more, honestly.
Brother, I feel like I am talking to one of the greats right now. Like in the early stages, I honestly have that feeling. I have to share that with you because there is a focus and there is an undeniable focus that you have to respect this music and be exactly who you are. So thank you for that.
And I appreciate you truly. I love to talk, as despite what people may think when they look at me, when they sit around me long enough. I don't say much usually, but when I'm given a reason to talk, when I'm asked, great questions, and when I'm made to think, I really do love figuring out what it is that I'm going to say, because I learn a lot about myself that way too. So I appreciate you having, this conversation with me, because I truly do love to talk about music above all.
Yeah. And thank you for being so intentional. Like that's one thing I noticed that even in your movements are extremely intentional about how you're approaching your career. So thank you for doing that and being an example of what it means to be yourself.
It's not as easy as it looks, because even when you want to do things a certain way, or when you want to be intentional about what it is that you do, you have people around you, whether they're in your team or not, trying to suggest that you maybe stop doing this so much and do this a little more. Maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that. Like it gets really irritating, and I can see how people just give up on being intentional and they just kind of just go wherever they're pulled, you know what I mean? So if you can help it, man, remain as intentional as you can be for as long as you can be it, because at the end of the day, like, you have a team or you have people supporting you because of you. So you just always remember that. I'm trying to remember
Yes.
that too.
Buddy Red, thank you for joining us here today on Rolling Out Music. Your story, your influence, your passion for the music reminds us of why it's so powerful. So again, thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yes, I'm looking forward to see how this journey continues to unfold. We got the tour coming up. I'm salty there's no Chicago date, so that means I got to find some way to make it out to you. But I can't wait to see you live, brother. This is your man, Precise, Rolling Out Family. Make sure you get your tickets out here and find out the tour schedule at your website is buddyred.com.
BuddyRedMusic.com, and you can find me on Instagram under Buddy Red.
Yes, yes. So Rolling Out Family, get your tickets at buddyredmusic.com and see that tour schedule. This is your man Precise Rolling Out Music. And as I always say, stay focused, positive, and productive. Peace.